This is HBR News number 521. U.S. military moves towards due process. Kier versus the British people. We discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you're not consumed by it. I'm your host, Brian. I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Dr. Ranarakam and Hannah Wallen.
Guten Tag.
And you are back in Britain, right? You're back in
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes. Well, that's all right. I'm sure that you'll have plenty to say about today's story. So
I will.
And we hope that you guys watching will also have plenty to say. Excuse me. So please continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. I'm sorry. I ate dinner and then I came to do the show right away. So things are still processing inside of me. So I may make unusual noises, but I'll try to keep that to myself at all.
You said the word came with some emphasis there. I was wondering.
It was a really good dinner. He described it.
Yeah, that's how good it was. Yeah. Anyway, on this week's show, we're going to be talking about how Pete Hegseth has basically upset people online, let's say, with some of the statements he made that are pro due process, which kind of validates the work that we've been doing here at HBR, by the way. But we'll get into that. Also, British Prime Minister Kier Starmer seems to have declared war on the British people. There's a Polish thot patrol, which I think could be a lot of fun, and more, so stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe, by the way, if you want to join us. We're going to be looking at our very own Wikipedia page. So the Honey Badgers have a Wikipedia, and we're going to see what it is they say. Let's see how fair and balanced Wikipedia is in representing who we are and what our positions are, and if we even exist. Because I think that if Wikipedia doesn't mention us, we don't actually exist. So some of us may just...
It's not as bad as it could be, folks. They don't say misogyny anything like as much as you would expect them to.
Yeah, it might even be fair, but we will... Yeah, we will endeavor to figure it out. So, what?
I have to say this. I'm not going to say who she is, but there's a Wikipedia entry on my grandmother. And I read it, and it's one of those entries that has like stipulations on it. This entry has problems, and the biggest problem they have is that the entry's information largely came from her autobiography, and they don't consider that to be accurate because it's too close to the source. Oh, and the website for her foundation. So basically, they don't like when information comes straight from the source. They want information to come from somewhere else. And I've got a couple of articles about Wikipedia on the Honey Badger Brigade website explaining why that's bad. So, but go on.
I am, by the way, still not on Wikipedia, not even in this article. But I have been on Encyclopedia Dramatica for the last 6 years. Do what you will, I have already won.
It's probably more accurate than Wikipedia would have been.
Encyclopedia Dramatica? Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to be looking at that, and maybe we'll compare it to the Men's Rights Wiki, because, I remember when I met the guys that set that up in 2017, I think it was 2017, when we went to Australia for the ICMI, and they were working on the Men's Rights Wiki. So, which is a pretty good resource if you guys, I don't know if they've been keeping up on it, but it's a pretty good resource, especially if you want to get like all of the factual data for like a discussion you might be having with a blue pill person and you want to like wake them up. But anyway, we're going to be looking at that. And if you want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com/subscribe to set up a subscription. $5 a month will get you into the Discord server and will allow you to watch all the additional content, which is probably almost twice as much content as we already put out. So That's basically how big it is. And if you give it higher levels, you can be a part of the conversation itself, and maybe that will give you an opportunity to become a badger in like the truest sense. Who knows? Like you never know who's going to become an actual honey badger. So feedthebadger.com/subscribe. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that our content has been yeeted from the internet, then go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find all of our archived content. And by golly, there is a lot of it. So anyway, pop a Tylenol, hold on to your ostrich, and we're going to get into today's stories. So I want to open up.
We will hire Etsy witches to turn you into a newt. See how that works.
There's a lot going on, folks.
Yeah, I can't cover it all, but I can sprinkle it in. So, anyway, so the U.S. Secretary of War, super cool, Pete Hegseth, addressed hundreds of generals and admirals alongside President Donald Trump to unveil a series of military reforms. The focus was on shifting the Department of Defense into a War Department ethos, emphasizing warfighting readiness and traditional standards, with initiatives including gender-neutral fitness standards and relaxed grooming rules. While the article does not directly address anonymity for accusers or due process, it mentions Hegseth's call for a review of the Inspector General process, including the equal opportunity and military equal opportunity complaint systems. This review hints at potential changes to how allegations will be handled, which could impact the anonymity of accusers and the procedural rights of soldiers facing accusations, though specific details remain unclear, because this was just like a recent announcement. So, the system was historically designed to protect accusers in cases of harassment and misconduct. So, like, if you've been watching our channel for a while, you'll know that I've had a series of interviews with various members of the military and their, let's say, relatives, close relatives and family members who have had their entire lives destroyed by a false allegation. Now, the reason why these worked were a couple of things. Number one, the military was following a kind of the same logic that the colleges were in terms of dealing with allegations. Firstly, they had to operate under the study that comes from the Mary Koss study, which essentially says that 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted in her time at college or in her lifetime. The actual like claims vary because it's a moving target. And so someone in the government said that, oh, well, this number is true of colleges, so it must be true of the military. So they saw that the military wasn't getting the same allegations. So they said, we got to pump those numbers up. And because of that, the military did, in fact, act on this kind of a preponderance of evidence standard instead of the normal sort of, beyond a reasonable doubt standard. And this led to a lot of men being unjustly accused. And a lot of how this sort of thing happened was it wasn't women in the military. I was talking to my wife about this. And she said, well, there aren't that many women in the military. And I was like, no, but it's not women in the military that this generally happens with. It's women who meet up with soldiers, like on shore leave or on in like a civilian environment, and they are cheating on their husbands or boyfriends with these men. And then when it looks like they're going to get caught, and this is extremely common, they basically say, oh, no, I didn't cheat on you. I was raped. And they'll make the allegation to get out of trouble with their boyfriends. And then the man who is accused, because the standard is so low to find a conviction, his life is destroyed. And also because the military wants to look good, so they don't like this, just like the colleges, they're protecting their reputation. And so this is what they do. But Pete Hegseth says that we're not going to be doing things that way. So I'm going to play a clip from this. But this is what I'll just read a little bit more. So Hegseth's administration is going to, or at least they're planning on limiting anonymity to enhance accountability and transparency, potentially exposing accusers to reprisal and shifting the balance towards the accused due process rights. For soldiers accused of offenses, the lack of explicit mention of due process protections in Hegseth's speech suggests that any reforms might prioritize disciplinary efficiency over extended legal safeguards, aligning with his focus on a combat-ready force. Because these false allegations and this kind of this sort of kangaroo court system they had was actually becoming a national security threat to the military of the United States, because men were not signing up because they didn't want to deal with that problem. And of course, good men were being dishonorably discharged, or worse, thrown in jail. Again, look at my fireside chats to see some of the people I've spoken to about this. However, we don't have concrete policy details, so we'll have to see where this actually goes. This remains speculative, but this was just recently announced, and I'm going to show you guys. This is a clip, and I hope that we get some audio here of Pete Hegseth's statements. It's sort of like a general idea.
Truth be told, for the most part, we don't need new standards. We just need to reestablish a culture where enforcing standards is possible. And that's why today, at my direction, I'm issuing new policies that will overhaul the IG, EO, and MEO processes. I call it the no more walking on eggshells policy. We are liberating commanders and NCOs. We are liberating you. We are overhauling an inspector general process, the IG, that has been weaponized, putting complainers, ideologues, and poor performers in the driver's seat. We're doing the same with the equal opportunity and military equal opportunity policies, the EO and MEO at our department. No more frivolous complaints, no more anonymous complaints, no more repeat complainants, no more smearing reputations, no more endless waiting, no more legal limbo, no more sidetracking careers, no more walking on eggshells.
All right, and the last thing I'll say to that is, and I do think this is just something I want to point out, I think that what we have been doing on this channel, and especially working with the folks over at wouldyu.care who made this a priority, I think that what we have done has gotten us to this point. And I think that we deserve a pat on the back. We should pat ourselves on the back, assuming this goes through, but it looks like that's the direction. So we'll see. This was just announced. And of course, the left and the feminists are losing their shit. Particularly, there's a guy named Wick, who's been like an attempt to rise in popularity by buddying up with people like Destiny. He's like a debate bro, and Allison and I were on their show a couple of times. And he basically claims to be like a veteran, and he made some ridiculous statement about like guys in his unit or whatever that created like a whole sex trafficking pimp thing, and that like the people were too afraid to step forward and like make the allegations. And he's basically losing his shit over this, and a lot of them are, because they like that kind of chilling effect, that eggshell effect, that this ideological shackles have put on people. So yeah, I think that this is something that is worth I don't know if celebrating is the right word, but at least it's encouraging. So anyway, I leave it to you guys to give your thoughts.
Yeah, it's admirably diplomatic of you to have skirted around some of the more controversial points. But from what I heard from Pete Hegseth himself, in clips beyond the one we just saw, he did outline some general standards for the military, basically along the lines of no more fatties, right? It's no more short, fat like troons. Right? I didn't hear him mention troons, but he definitely emphasized that there should be height and weight requirements for military officials, including generals, and that's fair enough. It's okay for the commander in chief to be a bit of a fat bastard like Trump. The other edge of the sword being it's okay for the commander in chief to be a dribbling vegetable like Biden, and that's unfortunate, but perhaps unavoidable. But military generals are meant to act as safeguards in the event of the commander in chief being a dribbling vegetable like Biden, because military generals are supposed to be the authorities informing the president of the geopolitical details affecting the whole situation. So it's important that they can be found to be in good health, both physically and mentally. Physically, because they're supposed to be able to be like awake and lucid and physically upstanding at any given moment in the event of an emergency situation. Like if they get a phone call in the middle of the night, they ought to be able to roll out of bed in one swift motion rather than flailing around like an upturned tortoise. And mentally, because, well, anyone in a position of power ought to be mentally astute. If you have yourself a delusional oaf like Rachel Levine telling obvious lies like, I'm a woman, when they're obviously not a woman, it throws a little bit of shade on the idea that they're telling the truth about anything else. And it's not just for the sake of the peace of mind of the American people, it's for the sake of instilling a reasonable amount of fear and respect into the minds of the enemies of the American people. If America's enemies are presented with a fat, cancerous, mentally ill blob like Rachel Levine, then they're just going to laugh in his or her face. Sorry if this sounds racist or sexist, but there ought to be standards of excellence, not in all walks of life, of course. If you're an HR administrator in a diminutive company that sells decorative charm bracelets, fine, you can be a useless fat cunt and maybe it doesn't matter. But if you're the top brass in the world's most powerful country, to whom the buck is to be passed in emergency situations, maybe you should be subjected to high standards. Maybe in that kind of high stakes situation, you ought to be there because of the merit you present, rather than the fact that you're a fat, black, Islamic, Mexican otherkin, and so on and so forth. Am I being controversial again? Am I turning some of you off from this unfashionable fringe of political thought we have here at Honey Badger Radio? Well, pardon my spleen and fuck you. Sorry, not sorry. I'm just a fat alcoholic degenerate, insomniac, and so on. Don't come to me for military advice. I mean, why would you? Therein, I think I might have proven my point. Don't do as I say and don't do as I do. But can you see if you can do what Pete Hegseth says? No? All right. Then fuck you. Be a fat, useless troon. See if I care. I hereby drink, and to that I will drink.
Drink.
There you go. As usual, HBR Talk has done a show on this. Like, I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but we talked about this when we were going through the funding site that Musk exposed, and we discovered that there is a massive shitload of money being spent on feminist organizations to come in and tell the soldiers how to get along with each other the way that women get along with each other, in order to make females comfortable in the military. And we came to the conclusion that it is really not cost effective at all for there to be females in the military if this is what it takes. And it seems like this is what it takes, right? That now that we've got like something like 17% of the military is women, men have to be subject to allegations of isms, phobias, and misconduct and misogynies and stuff, in order to make the women comfortable. And civilians have to be able to make these allegations and destroy a soldier's life, even when the soldier has not. Like, there's been a few cases that I've been told about by people involved with them, where the soldier never met the accuser and still got into trouble because of the way that the system handled the allegation. And there are people that didn't want to come forward and talk on they didn't want to get any more trouble, basically. But I know about it, and so that's enough. But in any case, like this is too much. This is rampant destruction of people's lives over false allegations. And the best overhaul that could happen would be if you make an allegation and it falls flat, you can't make another allegation, first of all. And second of all, if you make an allegation and it's proved false, you face military justice, even if you're a civilian. If you lie to the military to try to get one of the soldiers court-martialed or otherwise disciplined, and you get caught lying, you should face military justice under the military system, and you should have to rely on a military lawyer, and you should have to pay because they're not your lawyer, they're the military's lawyer. And if you don't want to do that, don't lie about the soldiers. Like that's the way that it should that's the way it should be handled. Our soldiers should be protected from this kind of bullshit. And the allegation system should use the beyond a reasonable doubt standard for any crime that would require a beyond a reasonable doubt standard in a civilian court system. Our soldiers should not be less protected from false allegations than our civilians are. You don't lose the right to due process because you become a soldier. Like, that's bullshit. We want to recognize honor, not take away recognition of it because someone outside the military acted dishonorably. So that's all I got to say about it. That system needs to be taken down. That's being paid for by the military. Like, they're telling the military what pronouns to use and everything. They're having the same stupid consent training that universities are using. And military funding shouldn't be paying a dime for that. That should not be done. Like, everything that's within the military should be done by the military. That's it.
And by the way, consider yourself lucky that your Department of War calls itself the Department of War, as opposed to the Department of Defense. Orwell has warned us about this, that the Department of War will call itself the Department of Defense while it sets up military bases all across the world. The claim is for defense. We're going to get on to the subject of a government that completely lies to its citizens all the time in the next story. And we a lot of us have been pointing to the USA for the longest time, saying that your so-called Department of Defense is obviously a Department of Offense.
Yeah, for sure.
But consider yourself thankful that you finally have departments of government that call themselves what they really are. And there's nothing wrong with having a Department of War. You should have a Department of War, and it should hold itself to high standards, which it finally is, and calling itself what it is. God bless America.
Department of Justice, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. All right. I just want to say
things
a couple of
say what they really are.
So here's the thing. He made this announcement and it was not popular with a lot of people. So I talked about Wick the Tick, because that's what he is. He attaches himself to bigger YouTubers and tries to increase his clout size. And he just gets fatter, but he doesn't grow in popularity. But there are also other comments right under Pete Hegseth's video clip that I shared with you that I'm going to read really quick, just so you guys can get a sense of what kind of resistance and what kind of dialogue is going to be happening going forward, okay? So someone said slashing anonymous complaints and calling out frivolous EO and IG gripes is just his latest move to shield the good old boys club from any real accountability. Sure, he says it's about letting commanders lead without fear, but come on, this is the guy who's already fired top women officers, nuked leadership programs for female troops, and erased women's service histories from the record book. So this guy's obviously approaching this, I don't know if it's a man, it could be a woman, from a kind of like female first perspective. Oh, Pete Hegseth is firing women. They must have been qualified and he must hate them. And that's what he's basically creating, a good old boys club in the military. Can you imagine comparing the military, where men go usually to die, and calling it a club they're not letting you in? That's what they're doing. That's the framing. Another commenter said, calling accountability walking on eggshells, that's not liberation, it's the death rattle of oversight. Hegseth's September 30th rebrand of whistleblower protections as frivolous complaints is authoritarianism in a thesaurus. While announcing this, he summoned 800 generals without agenda, causing chaos per DoD sources today. His February DEI rollback already projected 22% team efficiency loss per September watchdog reports. Yeah, who cares what your reports say? They're probably a good move. This mirrors February Feb's IG purges for unwelcome findings, exposing a pattern. Silencing critics weakens security. When you dismantle guardrails, the only thing liberated is corruption. So people are mad. One more, and then I'm gonna go on.
Well,
so yeah, people are
mad.
just not happy about this. Danny says, no anonymous complaints. Those are in place to protect victims from reprisals from superiors who hold enormous power over their very lives. But whatever. But it's really like, no, because if you can make anonymous complaints, like allegations of sexual assaults or rape against like random soldiers, and no one can even like face their accuser, which everyone should have a right to do, that's not giving like accountability, you know, to the person accused. That is essentially removing any accountability from the accuser and creating an environment or a climate where anyone can be accused of anything by anybody, and they many times they won't, even if they have evidence to the contrary, it doesn't matter because they just have to get the convictions. And there's plenty of stories of that too. Like I said, go to the channel and look up the fireside chats for people who I have interviewed, and there was a mother of a guy who's still in jail for something that he just did not do. Like, and they had all the evidence, and it didn't matter. So we're at least trying to get close to something called due process. But these feminists, and that's all I can describe them as, they don't want that. They want the ability to just throw people in prison, throw away the key for an allegation, and that's what has to change. So, all right. Anyway. I got some super chows, and then we're gonna move on. But I'd like to know what you guys think about this in the comments. All right, so Telemnar gave us a.
The commenters are relying on the same media that everybody knows basically lies about everything. So when they're making these comments and they're saying, they're pulling things directly from headlines. And like the statements about women in the military being erased and stuff, I looked into that, and there were some women that had gotten credit for things that the men around them had done, and he fixed that, and now women are mad. That is essentially what happened. That the news media turned into, he's erasing the service records of women in the military. No, he's not.
Yeah. All right, so I got a couple super chows. I'm gonna read them out. Let's see. Telemnar gave us $100 yesterday, late last night, and said sending this in cause Hannah was so sweet during the meetup, and she made excellent arm candy for me when we went up Mount Sulphur. Thank you, Telemnar, for the 100, and I'm sure Hannah appreciates that. Remember, she's married. Meredith G gives us $5.
And I'm old too.
Yeah, Meredith G gives us $5 and says, HBR News 521, honey for the Badgers. Thank you, Meredith. All right. Special chat is super special today. So there's like 423 people watching on the vertical.
Hello, everyone.
No idea like how you can get like suddenly we just blow up and they're mad at us. They're mad. But you guys like, stop looking at what you see on the screen and listen to what we're actually saying because we're not
support due
lying.
process in the military.
Yeah, they don't like due process. No, they don't. No, not a big fan. Not crazy about it.
Show. So
no, they don't want due process for the people who sign up to fight and die for our country. They want due process for the illegals that aren't supposed to be here, though. That's what they want due process really for. People who literally legitimately don't have that right because they're not citizens of this country.
If you are a citizen of the United States and somebody accuses you of a crime, the standard has always been historically that there needs to be evidence that you committed that crime in order for you to be punished for it. Not that just somebody says you did something. And the reason is because every time we've deviated from that, we've had something happen like the Salem witch trials where people can show evidence that they feel harmed. And that was literally the only evidence that was in the Salem witch trials was a bunch of people claiming that they felt harmed and pointing fingers at other people. And it results in executions, land grabs, ruined reputations, ruined marriages, people having to go back to home countries and so on, like all kinds of chaos. So until we stick to that standard that if someone accuses you of a crime, there has to be evidence that you committed that crime before you can be punished for committing that crime. Then you end up being subject to a system that can be exploited by people who want something and not used to ensure remedy for people who had something actually done to them.
Yep. All right, well, anyway, let us know what you guys think about that one in the comments. We're going to move on to the next story. Appreciate the super chats and super chats from all the people who wanted to add their own commentary. And those of you guys who are in the special chat can also contribute to the conversation if you are so inclined. Maybe you can school us with your superior logic and reason. But
thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Okay. So let's move on to the next one. All right. So at the Labour Party conference on September 30th, 2025, United Kingdom Prime Minister Kier Starmer delivered a rousing speech that positioned Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, as a significant political adversary, framing the party as an enemy of the British people. According to the BBC article, of course the BBC would say this, Starmer emphasized a fight for the soul of the nation, urging his party to confront and defeat Reform UK and the broader populist right, suggesting that their policies and rhetoric threaten national unity and progress. He sought to reclaim patriotism, proudly referencing symbols like the Union Jack and other national flags, while accusing Reform UK of fostering a politics of grievance that undermines the collective good. This rhetoric was part of a broader strategy to rally Labour supporters ahead of crucial elections in Scotland and Wales, positioning his government as a defender of a united, inclusive Britain. Nigel Farage responded sharply, expressing shock at Starmer's remarks and countering that it was Labour, not Reform UK, that was the true enemy of the British people, asserting that only his party genuinely represented their interests. The article that I got this from highlighted that Starmer's comments were intended to draw a stark contrast with Reform UK's right-wing populism, which has gained traction with 5 MPs and growing local influence, as noted in related Wikipedia entries. This exchange escalates political tensions, with Starmer's language potentially risking accusations of divisiveness while also raising questions about how due process and democratic debate might be affected if such characterizations influence policy or public perception. The ongoing battle for patriotic narrative dominance suggests a contentious period ahead, with both leaders vying to define the nation's future direction. Okay. I'm going to leave it to Mike, who I'm sure will have a lot to say. So.
There's a veritable treasure trove of quotes that I could dissect from that circus of a conference. And we haven't got all day, so I'll focus on one example from Kier Starmer. from Kier Starmer's dense comedy of errors. Quote, if you say or imply people cannot be English or British because of the color of their skin, if you say that they should be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have. End quote. First of all, England is a people, a European people, and Britain is an island, a cold, wet island in the North Atlantic. It is a biome that necessarily and undeniably produces humans with pale skin because of the distinct lack of sunlight compared with more equatorial continents. To say that phenotypes from those continents cannot be of this land or this people is no more controversial than saying penguins cannot be from the North Pole. We call it a fact. There are plenty of people who don't know this fact, but I won't hold it against you unless you're simply pretending not to know it, even though you clearly do. But it seems if you even so much as imply that penguins cannot be from the North Pole, you are officially Keir Starmer's enemy. Well, that's good to know. But if there are penguins that do manage to make it to the Northern Hemisphere, indeed to the British shores, perhaps because they've been imported to British zoos, okay, it's no skin off my rosy nose that they're all a bunch of black and white bastards. Is that racist? I may have unlocked a new kind of racism there. We'll see. But yeah, when it comes to the matter of deportations, that's another story. And it's not about the color of their skin, Starmer. It's not why we want to deport people. It's about their nation of origin. The one they only just left, the one they only just moved away from. If someone with dark skin has married into British citizenship, or their family has been here for a century, nobody is calling for their deportation, except maybe the hardest of the hard right. And that most definitely does not include anyone in the Reform Party. Trust me, Reform is full of milquetoast wave riders who will only take one baby step at a time towards what the British people actually want. We're talking about the Boris wave, the millions of people who were gushed into the country and given indefinite leave to remain over the past 5 years or so, while the rest of us were banned from leaving, even indefinitely. We're saying Boris and his Conservative Party, you know, your political rivals, Starmer, we're saying they made a mistake in inviting millions of third world freeloaders into the country, regardless of the color of their skin. We don't even want to give Irish people automatic citizenship and limitless access to our services, just like Ireland doesn't want to give it to us. And that's fine. We don't want Dutch or German people taking advantage of us either. And we sure as hell don't want any French people. And those are the countries closest to us, geographically and ethnically. So it was never about race. It's about nationality. You keep calling us racists. You keep calling the policies we promote racist. But when you put down the magical incantations for a second, you notice that what we are, if anything, is nationalist. Not nationalist socialists. Absolutely not. We're just people who are ready and willing to acknowledge and recognize the concept of a nation. We're just people who can agree on where we draw the line between where one nation begins and the other nation ends. They're called borders. That thing called borders, and we think they should be policed. And in Britain, they're not even all that extreme, because our border has been conveniently drawn for us by Mother Nature in the form of that mass expansion of salt water we call the sea. You know how most borders work? You know how most borders are policed and enforced across the world? Especially in the African and Middle Eastern countries whose vagrants are being invited into our green and pleasant land. What do you think happens when you cross those borders in North Africa and the Middle East? You get shot, Starmer. No questions asked. You get shot so many times that you become a pink blob of unidentifiable entrails and bullets that goes on to get sold for scrap metal and street food. And we're not even asking for that. Even the so-called far right, whom you've declared your enemy, is not in favor of such extreme measures. Well, some of us are, and to be honest, based. But certainly not the Reform Party. Reform just wants them to be sent back. And pardon my vast difference, but I think that's a much more sensible option than, checks notes, introducing a digital ID card system that does absolutely fuck all to prevent this, but does have the convenient effect of controlling all and every aspect of the lives of the native British people. Like, if we want to spend our hard-earned money on, let's say, red meat or booze or, heaven forbid, traveling, perhaps to another country, heaven fucking forbid, you can go, nope, you're not allowed such luxuries. We can't afford it with the money we're stealing from you. We're far too busy handing endless gibs to people from those African and Middle Eastern countries whose border policies we would not hesitate to call far right if there was ever any hint of them being enacted in Britain. And as I said, it's nothing to do with the color of people's skin. It's to do with nations. But you, Mr. Starmer, are ignoring what it is really about, and you are masking it about the color of people's skin. What do we call someone who ignores reality, who ignores nationality and sovereignty, and instead decides to hyperfixate on the color of people's skin? Do we have a word for that, Mr. Starmer? I believe we do. It's a word that can be used descriptively, but which you and your oikophobic ilk use as naught but a magic incantation. It's the word racist. On the one hand, we've reached the point where we're finally starting to dispel this incantation and brush it off as lazy, psychosomatic pieces of white noise that you've turned it into. But at the same time, it is a real word with an applicable definition. And if it applies to anyone, Mr. Starmer, it is you. You are the racist. You are the leader of a party of racists. a party that is and always has been a Trojan horse for communism. We are not talking about the color of people's skin. You are. All you can see is black and white and the brown in between. And you have long since decided that black is good and white is bad. Your every decision, your every policy reflects this. So I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to let you call us racists, nor am I going to let you dilute the word racist until it no longer has any meaning. It does have meaning, and it applies to you. You are an oikophobic racist, Mr. Starmer. Join me, brothers. It is not enough that we disarm these communist traitors of their magic incantations. We must take back this word and this concept, and we must apply it to those who would corrupt it and project it onto anyone who does not align with their anti-white racism. Just like we must take back the word sexism and apply it to those who would corrupt it and project it onto anyone who does not align with their anti-male sexism. And let us not labor under any delusions, gentlemen, that all of our problems spawn from this immigration crisis. Do you really think it fell from a clear blue sky? Do you really think it started with Tony Blair? It did not. The path had already been cleared for Tony Blair and his oikophobic misandric revolution, just like it was cleared for the Clintons and their oikophobic misandric revolution. If we ever do fix the anti-white racism problem, I do hope we finally get around to fixing the anti-male sexism problem. Because that's what came before. And yes, I'm sure something else came before that. If we have to work our way backwards, first by culling the leaves, then by culling the stems, then by culling the seeds, so be it. But let us not lose sight of the seeds, wherever and whatsoever they may be. Needless to say, I'm not a real botanist. None of this is gardening advice. Ignore me entirely, as paradoxical as that might be.
This
Lauren,
is
Hannah.
this is pretty much the same situation, but that they tried to create in the United States with oh shoot, I think that might be, no, it's not mine. I'm hearing static all of a sudden.
That was Mike.
Um,
It's okay.
Oh, okay. But with mass migration, that was illegal immigration, and not dealing with it when crimes are committed, and then accusing people of racism when they didn't want to be victimized by the fact that criminals were being allowed in as much as or more so than people who were actual refugees from nations where people were trying to kill them for something they believe in. And the term refugee got stretched from somebody's trying to kill this person in their home country because they've done something political or done something religious, and the nation is opposed to it, to these people don't make enough money in their home country, so they want to come here and rely on our welfare system and send the money back to their home country, and that's called a better life. That was, the kibosh was put to that by people who realized that you cannot polite your way out of a group of people trying to use a system like this to dominate you. In the United States, what we had was a war between, this is a cold civil war between people who want the government to control their neighbors and people who just wanted to be left alone. And being left alone includes not having a criminal population inflicted on your neighborhood, and then used to control you by telling you that A, the police aren't going to do anything about it, and B, if you do, you're going to get prosecuted, right? And that's basically been the situation for 4 years prior to the Trump administration. That's what was going on here. And what ended up having to happen was people in the United States who don't normally get involved in politics, who don't normally get involved in elections, and many of whom don't normally vote, had to step up and actually involve themselves. They couldn't just want to be left alone. They actually had to participate. And I think that that's probably the case in a lot of countries in Europe right now. You have a lot of people who have been complacent, content because things were okay until they weren't. And if you allow your politicians to use the people who want the government to control you so that your life isn't better than theirs, even if you work harder than them, even if you work smarter than them, you're going to have to participate in your system. Even if it's not perfect, even if you don't like your system, even if you think it's not a good system, you're going to have to learn how it works and push on your end of it as hard as you possibly can in unison in all of the ways that you legally can in order to push it back away from the circumstances that currently exist that you don't like. I would say the same thing to Canadians, because y'all have the same situation, but it's there are a couple things about it that are worse. And if you don't like this circumstance, mumbling about it on social media is one thing, but if you don't do everything within your legal power, everything that is legal in your country to do to push back on it, then it's going to just get worse. So you got to do the same thing that we did.
All right. Well, I can't add anything to that. So those that's good. But whatever you guys think about this, leave us your comments as well. It doesn't sound good, whatever it is. But yeah, we'll see how things go, and of course we'll follow up. Looking forward to seeing your thoughts. All right, next story. A little bit like smaller in scale, let's say a little less global. So there was a Guardian article that reported a woman named Roxana Leica, I hope I'm not butchering that, a 22-year-old nursery worker from Hounslow, West London, was sentenced to 8 years in prison for the sadistic abuse of 21 babies across 2 nurseries, Riverside in Twickenham and Little Munchkins in Hounslow, between October 2023 and June of 2024. The abuse, uncovered through CCTV footage analyzed by Metropolitan Police detectives, included pinching, scratching, and kicking children aged 18 months to 2 years, with one particularly harrowing incident involving a kick to a boy's face. Leica admitted to 7 counts of cruelty to persons under 16 and was convicted of 14 additional counts at Kingston Crown Court on June of 2025, as corroborated by a related Guardian article from June 16th. Her actions, which also involved pushing babies headfirst over cots and covering a toddler's mouth to silence cries, were compounded by her admission of smoking cannabis before shifts, further evidenced by footage of her vaping near infants. The sentencing followed a trial where jurors and parents were visibly shaken by the video evidence, with D. Sian Hutchings of the Met praising the family's strength according to the Guardian's coverage. Lecca's defense did not contest the severity of the acts, and the court highlighted her exceptional cruelty, as noted by senior Crown prosecutor Gemma Burns, aligning with reports from both Guardian articles. The closure of Riverside Nursery reflects the broader impact, while the case raises concerns about oversight in childcare settings, though no specific mention of accuser anonymity or accused due process emerges. Standard UK legal processes were followed, ensuring Lecca's right to a fair trial. Cross-referencing with the earlier web results provided confirms consistency in these details, underscoring a robust investigation and judicial response, though there are some questions about preventative measures in similar facilities in the future.
8 years? Is that it? I mean,
yeah, 8 years.
It's better than nothing. Nothing being what most women get for this kind of crime. But for fuck's sake. For all the shit we hear about racial minority men getting let off with 14 violent crimes against adults before finally getting sent down for stabbing a woman on a train, albeit in a different country. Like, what is the excuse for a woman violently abusing 21 babies that leaves her with anything short of the death penalty? This does appear to be a difference between male serial abusers and female serial abusers, but it's not a significant difference. They abuse and murder anyone they can abuse and murder without immediate retaliation, i.e. anyone significantly weaker than them. But I put it to you that the strength gap between a man and a woman on public transit pales into insignificance compared with the strength gap between a woman and a baby in a nursery, and a significant discrepancy in the outrage and pushback around such cases is that public transport tends to be presented with CCTV, whereas nurseries are not typically furnished with such video evidence. At least the Guardian article from which we pulled this story has not furnished us with it. Has anyone introduced the policy of perhaps installing CCTV in nurseries? Or in children's wards in hospitals? Or indeed schools? Or universities? Or any of the institutions that have long since been populated by female employees in the majority? I would like to see that. I mean, I wouldn't enjoy seeing it because I get the distinct feeling I would see a harrowing amount of female-made horrors beyond my comprehension. But if we are to get to the bottom of these crimes committed in schools and hospitals and such, then I think it might be pertinent to be able to show video footage of the crimes committed by the women who work in these facilities. If we are to live in this surveillance age where every violent crime can be viewed by the public, like we were able to see the real-time murder of Charlie Kirk, then I don't want to sound morbid or macabre, but I have to wonder, given the outrage that happened as a result of Irina Zarutska getting murdered on camera, I want to know how much outrage could be stirred if we were subjected to video footage of all the sick shit that women do. I'm reminded of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard case. I know we all watched it like it was a TV show, like it was a soap opera, and there was something rather perturbing about the way we were all glued to that shit, like for a month or two. But if that footage wasn't available, then we would have nothing to go by except the spurious interpretations of the only journalists who were allowed into the court at that time. If we weren't allowed to see the footage of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, we would have no way of interpreting what happened except through the smear merchants of the legacy media telling us what we should think about and what we should think about it, which, as we saw at the time, was a delusional hallucination of what was really going on. So, despite what we're being told about this case, about Roxana Lecker, the baby batterer, I can't help but wonder if we're only being presented with the tip of the iceberg. Bear in mind, it's a British court where objective coverage by video footage is not and never has been permitted. And bear in mind, we're only being told what the Guardian is willing or permitted to tell us. We can only imagine how much worse the reality is. At this point, I want to see the footage. I know that sounds sick. I know at this point I have watched footage of a man being shot through the neck. On top of that, I've long since listened to footage of babies being genitally tortured at 8 days old. And the oscillating screams they make when their flesh is being ripped from their penis. I wish I never heard it, because that sound will never leave me. Because this is where we are now. So yes, I have been partially desensitized from such horrors. So I'm ready. I'm ready to see and hear the footage of what these women do to these children. More importantly, I want everyone else to see it. I want everyone to know what women do to children. Very often with impunity, because exposing the public to these consequences, the consequences of women's actions, might be the only way to set us on the path to actually holding them accountable. The future is going to be dark, ladies and gentlemen. Darker than your worst nightmares can envisage, but that is what it's going to take. We've been taken this far into hell because we have been shielded from these consequences, because women have been shielded from this accountability. But shit needs to change. And it's going to change. And not a moment too soon. Sorry, I upset myself again. I almost cried just now. And I haven't cried since 2020. That was close. I will regroup. Let's go. Let's do the next story while I regroup. Oh fuck, sorry.
I'll let Hannah give her thoughts
Yeah,
on this. Yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
I raised my kid without sending him to daycare because of this. Right? I tried using a local YMCA daycare system to my hometown for a few months to give him a different group of kids to play with, where he was there for a few hours a day. And one day, one of the other kids bullied him, and he didn't do anything back to the other kid. He just moved away from the other kid. But he got into trouble for fighting because the other kid hit him. And I pulled him out that day, and I told them why I was pulling him out. Like, you can't allow somebody to abuse my child and then tell him that he is partially to blame because he was present for his own abuse. That's not okay. And they were completely shocked by my logic. They didn't understand why that bothered me. And that told me everything I needed to know about the daycare system in the United States. Now, I know this is in the UK, but it sounds like it's fairly similar in that parents are expected to drop their child off and then not have any idea what's going on with their kid. And by parents, I mean mothers, right? Because it's really normally mothers who stay at home to take care of children when they're young. And it doesn't matter whether you consider it sexist or not, that it's usually mothers and not usually fathers. That's just the way things have been. So it's usually mothers who are the ones that, if they decide they're going to work when their child is young, they drop the child off at daycare. There's a better way to handle if you want to go to work. No one in your community is going to be more invested in your child's welfare than you are. Strangers do not care about your child, and it's a harsh reality. Even if they work in childcare, even if they are school teachers, they do not care about your child individually the way that you do, the way that your immediate family does, the way that some of your extended family might, or your close friends. And if you're going to pay somebody to watch your child, and you know daycare costs X number of dollars, it would behoove women who think it's very important that they go to work, to offer that money to their mother, their sister, their cousin, their best friend, somebody that, their child plays with that other person's children, and that other person has watched their child grow up and has some love and care for their child, and not strangers. And if you can't, because you don't make enough money, do it. My friends and I did. We traded childcare growing up. We didn't use daycare centers. We worked different shifts from each other. And sorry about the sniffling. It's not tears. It's the weather. I'm allergic to everything, so sorry. But we just worked together and created a schedule with each other, and we watched each other's kids. Grandparent time is important. Grandparents want to see their children. Let them. And women who are divorced, you shouldn't be paying for childcare during hours when your ex-husband, is not working. Let him see his kids. Give him time with his children. It's 1,000 times better than strangers. And this type of incidents will go down exponentially, and daycare centers will not be so understaffed and so desperate for employees that they stop doing their due diligence. It takes 3 months or something like that for pot to get out of your system. And I don't know how it is in the UK, but in the US, you can't work at a daycare center if you have that in your system. Right? And they're supposed to be doing routine testing. Companies like mine are supposed to be doing routine testing. I'm not daycare. I take care of intellectually disabled adults. But we know that at any moment, any of us might be told to go get a blood test to find out if we've been using drugs, or a urine test or a hair test. They could do any method that is used to test for drugs. And it's easy for me because being allergic to everything in the world, I'm afraid to use those kind of substances. But even people who are okay with using those types of substances know, well, I can't do this if I want to be employed in this particular profession, because I could be fired for it, and it's legal for them to fire me for it, even if the substance is not illegal. Marijuana is still included, even though in my state it is 100% legal to use marijuana. If I were to use it and then my company tested me and found it in my system, I would still get fired. And they can do that. And it's not wrong that they can do that, because there should be a higher level of accountability for people who are providing care for people who are extremely vulnerable. In fact, there should be the highest level of accountability, every bit as high as the accountability that we should have for police officers, but don't always. Right? Every bit the level of accountability that we should have for people who work in psychiatric care, where people's perceptions might not be accepted by the people around them. And they may even be able to report abuse and be not taken seriously because their perceptions are not believed by the people around them. So this is heinous that this happened, but it's also something that needs to be put at the feet of women. Be a better judge of who you leave your child with. Your child is the most precious person in your life, and you and your child's father are the most precious people in your child's life. And you absolutely cannot be flippant with where you decide your child goes and who your child is exposed to. It is not your fault this person behaved this way, but it is your fault your child was with that person. So that's my take on it. Maybe less women using daycare and a smaller daycare system with a great deal more accountability is what is in order to fix this.
All right. Yeah, not much again. I think what needed to be said was said. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Yes, she is a monster, but they're female. My whole point has always been female monsters exist. Let's stop pretending they don't. I'm sure that you guys that are watching this know this, but there are a lot of people who want to pretend like it doesn't happen and that men are the only perpetrators of, evil and harm in the world. So let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. All right, we're going to go look at the last story. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super chats or anything. No. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you want to send a super chat in, I will be sure to read it. Usually I read them between, stories on the news show. So, all right. So this was kind of an interesting one. In Poland, all right, in Poland, there has been an emergence of something called the Zon Patrol, which is a viral trend in Poland targeting girls and young women. What are they doing, you might ask? They are subjecting them to humiliation, and the trend involves creating social media profiles and groups where minors, predominantly girls, are publicly evaluated and stigmatized based on their appearance, clothing, and behavior, using the term Zon as a derogatory label. This aligns with the report from the Polish Office of the Commissioner for Human Rights on September 5th, 2025, which describes how the practice has led to stigmatization and instances of peer violence, which is not actual violence, with the commissioner urging Meta and TikTok to monitor and curb the content. So what has happened is a bunch of young men they basically formed the thot patrol. The thot patrol in Poland, all right? And they are shaming women or young girls around their age, like their peers, for their online behavior, for engaging in thottery, basically. So they're trying to curb that behavior by using shame, and they're wearing vests and calling themselves the Thot Patrol, essentially. The viral nature has amplified its reach with examples of profiles rating and mocking young individuals, posing significant psychological risks, according to some, including potential suicidal ideation among victims. No, not really. The Polish Commissioner for Human Rights has called for vigilance from social media platforms, requesting the removal of the Zon Patrol related content and preventative measures to address stigmatization and violence, as confirmed by the report. There's like a Polish report. While the article does not delve into legal proceedings or due process for accused perpetrators, the focus on platform accountability suggests an effort to protect the victims' anonymity and safety, though it raises questions about identifying and prosecuting those behind the trend. So essentially, it's an online trend, or sort of like a trend online and in public spaces, of young Polish boys basically thought patrolling Polish girls, and it's made the news because you might say that Poland is based or whatever. I know some people have made this claim, but they're still extremely gynocentric and they're still really overprotective of their women, and they're not able to see that women and girls can engage in, let's say, like anti-civilizational or degenerate behavior, and these boys are just calling it out and they're basically doing their part. So I thought it was like a funny story to end on, that there's a literal like a thought patrol in Poland. Of course they would do it first, but anyway,
Guys, don't you realize that boys and men are never allowed to engage in this type of relational aggression? Only girls can do that and get away with it, right? This is, on one hand, nobody should be doing what these guys are doing. You shouldn't be targeting people online, like just random, if they're not journalists or somebody who has influence and stuff. It's bullshit to just gang up on somebody and say a bunch of shitty things about them, even if you don't like the way that they're behaving. But at the other end of it, this is standard female behavior, and it is so common among women and girls that it is known for causing other women and girls to commit suicide. And there are girls who will make it their goal to drive another girl to suicide using this kind of behavior. It's tolerated. Girls are told to toughen up and learn to deal with it because women do this all the time. Girls do this all the time, and therefore, you shouldn't expect somebody to stop them, right? It's the girls will be girls of the feminist boys will be boys meme, which the feminist boys will be boys meme purports to be the answer to society saying boys will be boys, but they always state different circumstances than actually exist when people say that. So it's interesting when boys act like girls, they get painted as monsters. They get treated like they've done some horrible thought crime against their community, and it makes international news, and everybody gets upset. What does that tell you about the way girls normally behave? That everyone tolerates, that everyone says, "Oh, this is funny when girls do it." Clearly, you might want to reconsider your opinion on this type of behavior when girls do it, because if it is damaging, if it is causing girls to say that they want to commit suicide, if it is causing emotional pain and suffering, if it is victimizing people, then it's also doing all of those things every minute of every day that girls do it and get away with it. Otherwise, if it's harmless when girls do it, then nobody should be upset when boys imitate them.
Yeah, there's gonna have to reiterate the things that Hannah just said. And there's not much I could say here that wouldn't be controversial, at least in somebody's eyes. But it's worth pointing out that Poland doesn't have to deal with the foreign rape gangs that are plaguing the rest of Northwest Europe. So they don't have to temper their shame culture with the offset of the scourge of such anomalies. Now, I'm no advocate of shame culture. I've been quite vocal about how shame culture does not work. In fact, if anything, it only pushes people away, especially young adults, whether you're pushing them in a left-wing or right-wing direction. There's a reason these shame nudgings tend to skip generations. But someone needs to say this, so I'll say this. There are two huge problems in Northwest Europe, and indeed in European North America. One is we keep importing foreign men who see Western girls as nothing but sluts, right? Another is we keep teaching our girls that there's nothing wrong with being sluts. Actually, there's a third problem. We keep teaching our girls that there's nothing worse than white men. I feel like I should leave a pregnant pause here, for want of a better turn of phrase. I want to let our detractors yell at me for being a sexist and also racist. How you doing over there in the special stream? But like I said earlier, there are the battle cries of actual racists and sexists, who conduct their racism oikophobically and misandrically, because they have no conception of sexism and racism other than the xenophobic and misogynistic kind. It's very possible, ladies and gentlemen, that foreign men are indeed really quite rapey, and that our own women and girls are indeed quite slutty. By no means does this excuse foreign men for their systematic gang raping of Western girls. Nothing can excuse that. But at the same time, we're all observing this OnlyFans culture. This culture of, if you hang around outside nightclubs in any city or any town or any small or large village, and you notice that women and girls of all ages are hanging around dressed as whores. I'm reminded of that Dave Chappelle routine. You might not be a whore, but you are wearing the uniform of a whore. Again, to reiterate and clarify, your choice of dress does not and never should excuse you being raped by men who ostensibly do not know any better. This is something that Western men have learned. We have grown accustomed to seeing women and girls, even underage girls, dressed exactly as whores, with the boob tubes and the miniskirts and the fuck me boots, like indistinguishable from women who would dress to advertise themselves as whores. To the point where you can't even tell who is a whore and who is not, because the average, even underage girl attending a nightclub is dressed exactly like the whores who are dressed in order to get fucked for money. How far does it have to go before it occurs to us that this is not normal? And how surprised can anyone really be that when economic migrant fighting age men from the third world turn up in our countries and they see streets full, lines of women dressed exactly like whores lining up around the street to get into nightclubs, and then leaving those nightclubs at 3 a.m, trying to flag down cabs? Is it any wonder that these fighting age men, these incredibly horny fighting age men, get the impression that these women dressed as whores want nothing more than to get fucked in the pussy? And again, I'm not saying that these 50 IQ shadow beasts from Pakistan are in the right. They're obviously not. I'm just saying these 50 IQ whores from Pussystan are not necessarily in the right either. What we have is a confluence of Western women who have not been burdened with any boundaries and Eastern men who have not been burdened with any boundaries either. We live in a society in which the only people burdened with any boundaries whatsoever are native Western men. And we're somehow expected to pick up the pieces when these competing demographics of first-class citizens inevitably find themselves in this cultural clash. What I'm saying is that maybe the answer to all this is not to keep blaming European men for absolutely everything. Maybe if we started blaming European women and non-European men for something, anything, ever, maybe we could begin to fix this. Poland, right, already fixed this problem with non-European men, and now they're starting to fix the problem with European women. Maybe they're not in the wrong. Maybe they're doing exactly the right thing. One thing at a time. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a real whatever I am. None of this is real advice from a real human being. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. It doesn't matter. Let's end the show.
All right. All right, so that was that. Let me know what you guys think. Basically, these kids, just for the clarification, because the way the article frames it, it was translated from the Polish as well. These boys were going around essentially up to women that or girls that were, being a little too, I guess, let's say, liberated, and they were using social shame to try to get them to change their ways. Because that was what they wanted to do. And, whether you are for that or not, I think that we covered why there is a double standard there. I mean, they're talking about making it illegal or having the state step in and do something about it. And the truth is, women, that's all they do is check each other online and in social situations. And if these boys are going to one day be men and they're going to be looking for wives, they're going to want a chaste woman. Then it's okay that they're trying to at least move the needle or state their preferences so that in the hopes that, some women will listen. So not saying this is the best way to go about it, but I thought it was funny.
On another note, guys, this doesn't work. Women have no shame. So yeah, they've made being called out for acting like you are part of a profession you are not part of. Right, mimicking a hoe. They've made that a term now for shaming. That as if it's inappropriate. Well, you're slut shaming me. Yes. Well, are you acting like a slut? Then you're gonna get slut shamed. Women have no shame, and they don't care.
Yeah.
For everyone who thinks they're going to fix this problem by sending them back. Yeah, sending them back is just culling the leaves. We got this far because we gave women the vote, and I don't know how to say this without being controversial.
But there is no way to say it. I mean, the truth is that women, the modern women, are the ones that created this problem. So if you think it's just send the brown people away, that won't matter because they're just going to vote them back in, or they're going to go seek them out. You guys, I see that there are some people in the vertical chat that think that there's a Wignat solution to this. Guys, if you don't do something about your women, no amount of talking about your white race is going to help, because your own women are seeking out foreign men. Full stop, period. You got to change that. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. They control reproduction. They are deciding these things. They are not just being victimized by these men. They are choosing these men, and you know that. You have to go anywhere and you'll see it. So, that's the thing. The one thing that I think well, I don't want to get preachy, but there is something that we've lost in the West, and it is more so affected the way women make choices. And yeah, no amount of like, you can't white nationalist your way out of this. You just can't. You have to do something about the women. Full stop. But anyway, we're gonna go into.
By the way, 0 days since some stupid bitch on social media gave Hannah Wallen an internet sex change. I don't have the meme handy, but it just happened. I'm not a dude, bitch. It and don't tell me that you are a dude, because that doesn't preclude you from being a bitch.
Yep.
Just saying.
You are a dude, Hannah.
Tell that to my OB-GYN.
Dude,
the OB-GYN who delivered my baby.
Dude has always been a unisex term.
Yeah.
You're a bigger dude than I have ever been.
There we go. That's
bro,
better. That's
bro,
right.
you're a dude, and dude, you're a bro.
So when it comes to what we just talked about, this is about female accountability.
Yes.
No man could get away with walking around in public dressed the way some women dress. Right? People would consider him dangerous, crazy, or offensive, possibly all three. Right? But when a woman does it, somehow criticizing it makes you a bad person. I have no sympathy, none. And I'm not gonna say that I've never showed off. I always liked to show off my legs when I was young because they were long and muscular and attractive. But you weren't gonna see my butt cheeks. Right? Those are special, that you don't get to see those. So it depends on the individual, but you have accountability when you communicate with other people that you have a level of sexual availability. It doesn't mean that you're triggering rapists. They're sick people. They don't care whether you're signaling availability or not. And in fact, they will take advantage of people specifically because of the opposite reason, that they're unavailable. They'll do a lot of harm because of that. But it doesn't change the fact that men have a right to their boundaries. And they do have a right to say, I don't want anything to do with you because you look like a hoe. And that's probably the most effective thing. Not walking up to some woman and handing her a note, you shame on you, you look like a hoe. Just don't go out with those women. Don't treat them to dinner. Don't take them to movies. Don't spend any time talking to them that you don't have to. If you disapprove of that, you show your disapproval by withdrawing the thing that women value most: attention.
I have slept with Hannah, by the way, quite recently. And I have seen her legs, but I have not seen her thighs. So I do not.
There you go.
I do not know how high those thighs go.
Okay, that was an overshare, guys.
Yeah.
I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke. I know it's a joke. All right.
Yeah.
But we're gonna wrap it up. So
it is technically correct. We slept in the same room.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I apologize for the snoring. I'm old. We do that.
I did not hear the snoring.
Oh, that's good. But I am still old and fat, just so people know.
So am I. Just so you know.
I am not. You're only as old as you're always as young as the woman you feel.
No, so, damn it. I wasn't
I'm
supposed
about 38.
To be 21. I get to be old when I say I'm old. I am way past 21. I win.
All right. But look, we're gonna wrap it up there. We're gonna go into the patron show now and look up ourselves on Wikipedia. So if you guys want to join us, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 will get you into the Discord server where you'll be able to participate in all of the additional activities. And if you want to check it out for free, you can get into the free version of the Discord by going to badgernation.online. That's badgernation.online. So you can check that out. All right, so we're going to wrap the show up there. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Thank you to Mike and Hannah for joining me. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you think about what we discussed in the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.